Good morning, everyone. Okay, there we go. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for being here. It's a true honor for me to be up. When they give me this opportunity, I was like, okay, I was just so excited and I couldn't believe it because, as most of you guys, the ones who do know me, I've been with CIS of Los Angeles for a very long time now, and it makes me so happy to be here once again and get invited to this event to speak to you guys about my story. So a little bit about me. I was actually born in the state of Oaxaca, Mexico, and I just kind of, and I just kind of want to take you guys back in time a little bit. Okay, so I was born there, and at the age of 2, I remember it was just a super random day. My mom was like, we're gonna get on a plane. And I was like, okay. I was super excited. I mean, who's not excited to get on a plane at 2 years old? Sorry, can you guys hear me okay? I don't know if it's my hair getting in the way. And then she was like, okay, we're gonna go on a plane. Okay, great. That sounded like so much fun at the time. And then we went on a plane. I didn't realize we were on the plane the whole time. And then when I was like, when are we getting? She's like, what do you mean? We already got out. And I was like, oh, okay. And then next thing you know, I'm in Mexico. And then she tells me, you're gonna go with your aunt. And she presented my aunt to me. And then I was like, I don't know this lady, but okay. She's like, no, you're gonna go with her, take care of you for a few hours. And I'm gonna see you in a few hours. I'll see you later tonight. And I guess I'm just supposed to trust what my mom said at that age. I had never gotten separated from my mom at that point, so it was always just me and her. And then next, I fell asleep with my aunt because I just remember getting into this van. Sorry, okay. Can you guys hear me better now? Okay. So I remember getting into this van, and next thing you know, I fall asleep and I wake up in this very strange home where there was much more people that I had never seen in my life. And then I was just looking around, and it turns out all these little kids were like, hi, how are you? Speaking to me in another language. And I was like, okay, I was just looking at them, and at some point I started crying. And one of my aunts came and she's like, oh, don't cry, your mom is coming home soon, ya viene tu mamá, you'll see her soon. And I was like, I just kept crying more, and I remember I just cried for hours and hours and hours. And then next thing you know, my dad walked inside the door, and just a little backstory. I hadn't seen my dad in almost a year, so I don't even know how I remembered him at age 2. He had came to the States before almost a year before me and my mom actually came, and for some reason I just knew who he was, right? And I was like, okay, he walked in, maybe my mom is gonna show up at some point, because at this point it had been a whole day since I hadn't seen my mom. So then he's like, he came, he hugged me, and I felt relief. I felt like, okay, maybe now my mom is gonna show up, and that's what I was hoping for. And I stopped crying, and I still didn't know who all of these strangers were, and I didn't even realize that I was in another country at that point. This whole time I thought I was still in Oaxaca, Mexico. And then next thing you know, I wake up the next day, right? My mom was there, so I felt a sense of relief, and I was so excited to see her. I think that's all I wanted that day. It was to see my mom and know that she was gonna come back. And then, time went by. One thing about it though is that my parents were always very with me and me, you're gonna, we're in a different country now. You're gonna go to school and you're gonna learn a new language, even though you've never spoken this before. And I was like, okay, I was just following directions. And one thing they would always tell me though, because I would constantly ask, when am I gonna see my grandma? I wanna go see my grandma. Or when am I gonna see my grandpa? Can I just go visit them? Can they come see me? That was my hope, right? And then they're like, oh no, you can't go see her. And I was like, what do you mean you can't go see her? I just saw her yesterday. I just saw her a month ago. And then she's like, oh, and they would always say this phrase in Spanish. They'd say, no tienes papeles. And in English, that translates to you don't have papers. And I was like, oh, what do you mean you don't have papers? Can I just go get one? And then they're like, no, like you don't have papers. But I never really understood what that meant growing up. I didn't understand what does that really mean, right? It was until I got to high school. Growing up, I always knew, okay, I didn't have papers. I thought that just meant I couldn't go see my grandma. When I get to high school, my sophomore year in college, I didn't have a quinceañera. It was around the time when I was turning 15, and we did grow up. So my parents couldn't afford to throw me a 15, even though I wanted one so badly. However, there was this trip that I got in. One of my teachers was organizing to Washington D.C., and I ended up. I told my parents, I was like, okay, I'm not having a quinceañera, but can you guys like at least help me fund this trip? Can you guys please? Like I begged them so hard. And they were like, okay, yeah, like we'll go ahead and pay for whatever the difference is, just make sure you go. And I was like, okay, great. And I ended up going, right? And I was so excited to go with my friends and experience this new place that I had never been to, because all I had been at that point was to LA. And so then at that point I was like, okay, great. So I go to Washington D.C. just like a regular average student. I go through the whole trip, and I go through the whole I get to experience all the museums and everything. The one thing that ended up happening in that trip though is that my teacher, the one that organized it, she planned a tour at the White House. And I don't know if you guys have been to the White House. You guys know that the security there is just insane, right? I think that was the thing that I was looking forward to the most, is going into the White House and being able to, see this place that I've always seen on TV and know that the president was there. So I went and I got in line. And when I got in line, there was a security guard that said, oh, let me see your ID. And I was like, okay, yeah, here it is. Everyone was just getting let in with their IDs and giving them the information that they requested. And then they told me, oh, okay, so what's your social security number? And then I was like, oh, like I looked at him, I was like, oh, I don't have one, I just have my school ID. Here it is. He's like, okay, but what's your social security number? I was like, I was like, I don't know, I don't have one. And that's all I could say, right? I was like, I don't have one. And then like I think he got the message that I was telling him, hey, like I truly don't have it. Is that I don't want to give it to you, or I don't know it, I don't have one. And then I think when he picked up on that, he was like, okay. He's like, you know what? Like he yelled at me. He's like, step aside, get out of this line, get out of my line. And then I was just like in shock. And I think, that moment broke me so hard, because then my teacher came. She's like, oh, what's going on? She has what she needs. And then she's like, oh no, she doesn't have a social security card. She has to get out of the line. She has to leave right now. And I was like, okay. And my teacher just looked at me, and I feel like she didn't even know how to help me. She didn't know what to say to me. And I just kind of looked at her, and then obviously she couldn't leave all these other students go by themselves. There was another friend that stayed out there with me, and I was like, okay, well, I can't go. And she's like, I'm so sorry, you're not going to be able to go, but here's some money, go have lunch, go to a nice place. But I feel like, like that day really, really broke me. And that day I understood, what does it mean not to have papers? What does it mean not to have a social security card? And I felt like that was just my turning point. And once I came back to the States, once I came back to LA, I felt like, I felt so defeated. I felt so, I was so hurt, I think, most of it all, because I didn't realize that, that meant a lot more to me. And then I came back to school. I was doing okay at that time in school. I was doing pretty good. And then I felt like it just kind of like, I didn't want to go to school anymore. I wanted to hide. I was like, why am I going to school? Why am I getting good grades? There's no point in it anymore, because I'm not going to be able to go to college. I'm not going to be able to start a career. Everywhere I go, they're going to ask me for this number that I don't know. So then I just kind of started not going to school. I didn't show up to class. And then at some point, one of my friends, she got involved with CIS. And, I really thank her, because she actually told me, hey, like, there's this program that I want you to come with me to. Like, come with me to one of the meetings. And I was like, oh, no, I don't really want to go. Like, I don't really see why I should go and be active or, do anything. I'm just here because I have to be here because my mom doesn't want me to stay at home. And then she's like, no, just come with me. You'll meet some great people. And I was like, okay. I ended up going with her. And so then she convinced me to go, and then I slowly started to get adapted to like all the CIS programs because I thought it was a wonderful place to be. Like everybody was always so friendly, everybody was very welcoming, and you know, it was a way from escaping the classroom, and it was always a way to escape home as well. And then at some point, I met one of my CIS coordinators who she asked me about my post-high school plans, and then and she kept asking me that, and I felt like I kept avoiding her. I was like, yeah, you know, I'll go to college. I just kind of was just like, yeah, whatever. And then at some point she asked me again, and I was like, okay, maybe if I tell her, she'll stop bothering me. Like that was my thought at that moment. Maybe like she won't, you know, she'll leave me alone. That was my hope. I told her, and honestly, that was the best decision it was me telling her, because at that point she told me, hey, like, I know someone who has been in your situation. It's another site coordinator in CIS, and I want you to meet her. And her name is Karina. And yeah, and you know what? That was the best decision that I could have made, because I met Karina, and Karina shared her CIS story she shared her story with me, and she told me that she was also undocumented, and she grew up, she went through the system, and you know, and she went through college. She went through a time where they were even banning undocumented students from accessing like just in-state tuition. So that really opened my eyes, and you know, I really, really thank CIS for that, for helping me find the right person and helping me actually, finish my high school career. And you know, it was they came at the right time. So I mean, I guess today I'm very proud to say that I graduated high school. I did really good. I applied to so many scholarships, and because not every single one would accept me, obviously, because a lot of them still ask for a social security card. However, I was able to find one that gave me a full ride to Cal State LA. And I graduated with a degree in business, with a minor in accounting. And today, a little fast forward, I work for a creative agency. I'm their finance manager, so I'm in business. I've learned so much with CIS while being here. And I'm part of the alumni program here at National and in my local affiliate, and I've been honored to now serve as one of the board of directors at the CIS of LA office. And you know, like, it's all thanks to CIS, it's all thanks to everyone that I have met along my journey. You guys have really, really helped me be successful and helped me really get to where I need to be. And I just want to thank you, every single one of you guys, because all of you guys have contributed to this. And I know that all this work, it matters and it works. And I think I'm an example of that. And I really, really hope that when you guys go back to your affiliates, you know, you guys can continue to like do this work and see why, you know, it matters. And thank you, everyone.